Yo.
Just hit record. I knew I was gonna forget something. I feel like that was
Oh
I
my
was in here
goodness.
looking at this.
Yo.
We only missed the first 20 minutes of the episode. Don't look at me like
Yo.
that.
Okay. Okay. Yo, that's on me too. That's on me too. I should have looked up. I should have looked up, but I knew it because I was looking at the thing up here and I'm like, isn't that recording usually up there? Oh man.
Oh
But you know what it is? We
man, I
usually
know.
switch the Zooms.
I
But
know, and
anyway,
so I
you know
have
what?
like the
Remix.
whole structure. Yeah, we will. I'm gonna put up a note next to my stuff too, so I can be like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Because there are like so many steps between getting on the Zoom with you, doing a quick note overview, right, and then like starting it live on the social media. And but there's so many steps, and I'm like, okay. Right. So anyway, we just spent 20 minutes, discussing legalized, legal marijuana. Right. And we spent some time discussing how Lisa was blessed enough to grow up in Oregon, where even before it was legal on the books, the shit's just always been legal. We smoke weed out here. I've always smoked weed. I've not always smoked weed. I mean, obviously there was a time in my life where I was not smoking weed, but from about 15 on, Lisa's been smoking weed and not running into trouble. Like before it was legal even. Whereas, you come from the East Coast, not so much out there, not so much in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's different. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess we can kind of hit some points again and everything. We should. Whoever been rocking with us with the live, you know what I'm saying? They'll just have to re-rock with us.
Right? Here we go again.
Yeah, on the East Coast it was different. On the East Coast it was different. Like I said, we have blue laws, which until I was like my mid-20s was highly restrictive of even getting alcohol on weekends and at nights. I mean, there was a spot in the hood, that I used to go to, this house. You had to know the right knock, the right people. You look right, they let you in. In the basement, they had about 10 refrigerators. Get your 40 or whatever.
That's
so
fun.
Even during those times, and so it's the same thing with weed. It's different. I mentioned the meme that I saw in terms of like people out here worried about whether they got birthday cake, grape kush, versus I don't know, strawberry angel, whatever, indica,
unicorn
out
cookies.
West, we just like, yo, is this weed fire or not?
Right.
Yeah, is this weed fire? Like, is this some bullshit or not? That's it. And it's crazy because like, is this not oregano? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what we worried about. Out here. It's also a different thing in terms of when I talk to people out here in terms of, they're like, how do you like to smoke? And I'm just like, yo, dude, I just grew up with blunts. Meaning that we grew up, with basically a way to have a disposable way of smoking weed. So, it wasn't about like,
I don't even care how legal it is. Like I cannot. I'm like, yo, if I can't eat it and have it be gone, I don't have it on me. I just do not. And it's a weird. I will be out with friends and they'll pull out like pieces and dab. I had friends that like full on in the parking lot of our work before we would start our shift would pull out a whole dab rig and be fucking torching it, doing dabs in the parking lot. I'm like, yo, I got a joint. If someone rolls up on me, I'm gonna eat it, and you guys are in trouble. It's very strange to me too. I'm not used to it yet. I'm just not. I learned to be sneaky.
Yep.
We didn't get in trouble here. I've had 2 interactions with cops when it comes to me smoking in public before it was legal. The first one was when I was in high school. I was like 17 or 18. I was the end of high school, and I was hanging out in Lithia Park in Ashland, Oregon. And we were like way up in the park. My girlfriend had pulled out her bowl, and I remember telling her, like, people are going to see you. How are you going to smoke that? But whatever. And a police officer walked up to us and was just like, the fuck are you guys doing? We were like, nothing. He was like, that's funny because I literally just saw you smoke weed. Like, he just like put his hand out. And my girlfriend handed her a pipe over. He's like, what else you got? And she was like, nothing. He's like, where's the rest of the weed? So she pulled her bag out and she gave it to him. And I swear to God, he dumped the bag out, ashed her bowl, stepped on it, put the pipe in her pocket, and he was like, "There's kids at the park. Stop being assholes. Get out of here." That was it. We were like, "Yes, officer," and we left. And then the second time it happened to me was like in my early 20s, out at the bar, and I was a group of people. And this time it wasn't just like me and my white friends, because that's really all I had in high school. We're gonna be, totally honest about it. But it was like a mixed group of like the college. So there were 2 Black guys there. And I remember my girlfriend, Stephanie was there. But either way, it was a mixed group, and we got in a little more trouble that time. Like that time, they were a little more firm with us, just like, "You guys should get out of here. We're gonna follow you out of town. Make sure you're not drunk driving," kind of shit. Like they were a little more aggressive with us, but we didn't get in any trouble. It was done. But the only reason I only had 2 interactions with cops in all those years smoking weed is because I was still discreet about what the shit I was doing. I was not just like out all the time pulling dab ribs. It's weird to me. Even if it's legal, it seems like it's way too much for my taste.
well, once again, this goes back to the element of legal, in quotes, weed.
Right. Right.
So like we know that most drugs that are illegal nowadays was due to racial components. So even though we have a lot of issues that are health issues nowadays from certain drugs, the reality is in their inception, in terms of when they were made illegal, it was due to race. So for instance, we know that cocaine was okay for Black workers and stuff to use the early parts of like before crack, but when it was just like straight cocaine, it was okay,
and like
when
in
they were
your
workers.
Soda. Right.
Right. Yeah. Right. In your soda,
like
Coca-Cola,
legitimately in your Coke. Right. Yeah.
Right. Heroin, same thing. Heroin, it was, Bear was making heroin tablets. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, we still use byproducts of opioids. So for instance, your methadone, to get off of heroin is a derivative of opium. You know what I'm saying? You're allowed to have morphine if you're really, really sick. You know what I'm saying? But the original
they gave
reason
me
why
morphine when I was in labor one time.
See, that's crazy to me. But the reason why it was quote unquote made illegal is because, once again, Asian hate, Asian race, dealing with opium.
Right.
So this is that was the main reason, and they were like, "Oh, it's going to affect white people." And the same thing with cocaine, the same thing with marijuana, which is even why we call it marijuana. You know what I'm saying? Because it was identified with those of Mexican descent, and then it was humanized.
Mexican.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. So when we get back to now, when we're talking about legalizing it, it's one thing, once again, to have certain laws on the book, but the real question is, we have a whole bunch of laws on the we have laws on the book that are unjust. We also have laws on the book that are not equally applied to all parties.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So for instance, you know what I'm saying, like I was saying, like when I first came out to San Francisco, was chilling with my homegirl, smoking out, on a hill and everything. I'm looking around, my head's on a swivel. I'm like, "Oh, there's cops down there." In my head, I'm like, okay, even though there's all these people smoking weed here, I'm gonna be the one arrested.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how I feel like this legality is gonna, play with things in terms of access also. Because that's the same thing on the East Coast in terms of like, a lot of people we always had weed delivery stuff in New York and stuff on the East Coast and that kind of shit. But the reality is that it was Black and brown people who was literally didn't live in places where they could smoke weed, right?
Okay,
so they had to be out and about smoking weed. So we out smoking blunts on the streets, whatever, because you can't smoke it in your apartment, you can't smoke it in your house. But meanwhile, once again, white people, they're uptown, whatever, they're able to smoke it. They get that junk delivery by a fucking biker,
Yeah.
this
Yep.
spot, and so like it's always a question in terms of like how is this law going to be applied equally, across the board,
Well, and
and
I'm
that's what.
also curious, like, I don't remember if we talked about this before record or after record, so forgive me if this is the 30th or 40th time I'm saying this now. But with New York legalizing recreational marijuana and then also working into the language of the law that they will expunge the records of people who have been convicted of crimes that are now legal. And they're also working to reassess the sentences of people who are still serving time over convictions that would now be considered legal, right? Within that, part of what is interesting to me about them doing the work to expunge the records is now that, because I may be wrong, but for some reason I felt like if you had drug convictions or like hardcore felony convictions, you're not able to open a dispensary. And maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know where I got that, but I thought that there was like, in order to qualify for opening a dispensary, there are certain, there's a certain criminal record that you're not allowed to have. Maybe I'm making that up. But if I'm not making that up, then that means, okay, good. So then that means specifically in New York, where they're going to be expunging all these records, all these business people, all these entrepreneurs who were figuring out how to do certain shit before now have the opportunity to legally make money. And I am curious how that is going to change the landscape of business owners, like Black and brown business owners in New York. I'm just curious about it. Because that was one of the things that I remember thinking very specifically when, Oregon started legalizing recreationally. I never had a doubt in my mind it would be recreational. I thought it was silly people were even voting on it. It's like, so if it doesn't pass, what changes? We're all just going to keep smoking our fucking weed. I don't even know what that means. Cool. It's but it was just kind of like, as I was saying before, that's kind of why we avoided dispensaries. Like me and my group of friends, we didn't give a shit if it was legal or not. Like we still went through our dudes. We still had our friends and one girlfriend that like I'd been getting weed from literally 20 years. I wasn't changing certain stuff and the dispensary, but it was that unfairness. It was like the inequity of certain people all of a sudden making tons of money off marijuana, legit millionaires, right, off marijuana, while other people are just like rotting away because they had joints.
And not even rotting away. Like you said, you have your homegirl who you were getting it from, right?
Fair.
She's out in the open, right? She's out doing her thing, right?
Right.
But guess what? I guarantee you that she probably isn't, if she's of color, she's not able to get the same kind of loan that Frat Boy Chad is. To even start like to start an official legalized dispensary. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is also like these legal structures have to be set in place to allow people to transition, right? Like it doesn't mean anything if like, okay, now weed is legal. You know what I'm saying? Well, then the same people who due to disparity already have certain privilege, you know what I'm saying? They're the ones who are still going to be able to cash in on it. You know what I'm saying? So those things have to be built into the language, like you say. It has to be built in there to address, the people who are already got charges, are already in jail on this. It has to be also set up so that people are able to transition if they're already doing the work out there, already growing and selling into legal businesses. It's like I said, like once I got here in Portland, I ain't never seen this many strip clubs and dispensaries in one place in my life. I've seen this many strip clubs in Atlanta, but I ain't seen this many like strip clubs and dispensaries
Isn't Atlanta
together,
way
like
bigger
literally
though,
everywhere
too?
I go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just crazy. Like I'm like, there's a strip club here too. Like I'm like, like I'm surprised I see dudes out on the street at all. Like with all these strip clubs, I'm like, how can they stay open if dudes are out here on the street? Shouldn't they be in the strip clubs? But the same thing with dispensaries.
The club's
and like I
making
said,
the money off girls' house fees. That's for sure. They're loaded.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely what they do. But these dispensaries, like I said, like they've gotten heavy investments before they even opened, right? Because they look like Mac stores. Like these are not like little like storefront things. These are things like you got neon lights and you got music and art and shit. And so what the fuck is this
beautiful shit? Glass display cases and like magnifying glasses with lights on them so they can pull it out and you can see all the hairs and the sparkles.
Listen,
Yeah, it's a fucking experience,
listen.
yo.
It
It's literally, it's
really,
like
it
going
really
wine
is.
tasting, except for you can't smoke everything you touch. And before COVID,
Right.
that was the best, dude. It's like before COVID, you could go in there and they like squeeze the little nug for you so you can smell it before you buy it. It was like
See,
there's a whole thing going
it's a
on in
different
there.
world,
Yeah, yeah,
yo.
yeah.
It's a different
Yeah.
world.
And it's
I ain't
not cheap.
experienced that
You're
part of it
right.
yet.
Like that's what I mean. Pre-COVID dispensaries were a completely different experience. As cool as they are now, like it literally, like you would go in there and they would pull out the nugs and let you look at it under the magnifying glass and check it out. They have these special little tweezer things that they would like crunch the nug and then you could smell it. And just, oh yeah, all kinds of things. Yeah, yeah. It was
I'm just like,
excessive and silly, but now I miss
it
so.
it's funny because part of me is just like, yo, I just need to know if this shit gonna do the job. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just need to know,
Yes.
like, these particular things. Like, is it going to get me lifted? Is it going to,
Right.
take away my headache? Is it going to take away my nausea? Like, I need to know.
Oh,
like,
and they'll
the key
tell you
things.
that too. Yes.
Yeah, they'll tell you that, but like I don't know if this was got on the recording before, but what I've also found interesting is this, like, is the a lot of these places, even though they look, they all look top shelf per se, like sometimes the quality control ain't there, and it's interesting to me because so it goes back to what you said about knowing your dealer, like when you got weed on the street, many times you are closer connected to the farm or where it was being grown at, right? So the quality was better quality, and you had one person that was accountable for that. When you're in a store, you're getting it from, first of all, several different sources. They're getting it from several different sources. They don't have that kind of relationship with all the different type of people. And so it's definitely different. You know what I'm saying? And like I said before, like in this time of quarantine, it's interesting and it's important to also look into, if you're in a state where you can legally grow your own shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I advocate growing your shit, like whether you're talking about food or
just like
having
food.
plants around you.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know if this was unrecorded either. A lot of people out here anti-vaccine, but you smoking some really, really hella GMO type weed shit. You smoking something that probably got fucking, baby toes and shit in it.
And some of those things you guys actually smoke out of. Like I've seen, so it's like, can you smoke out of that material? Is this a real thing? Right. I haven't got anybody smoking out of aluminum can in a while. It's been a while, but I remember those days, man. It's like, yo, were we that desperate for marijuana? Because it's not, it's really not worth all that. Yeah. There is, though, it's true. It's like there is an intimacy. I mean, I think I'm hippie enough, I guess, to understand the relevance, right? And the kind of beauty, if you will, of like connecting to the earth that way. And I think it's great. I love to grow flowers. I love to grow food. I have not grown weed. Right. But I do want to, because it's like dispensaries are cool. Anytime that I am just kind of like tired of the strains that I've been sticking with. And I'm a sativa smoker. I am not big on indica. I have way too many fucking kids to just like chill on my couch. That does not work for me. So, and sativas aren't very popular out in Southern Oregon. So I search a lot. So dispensaries for me are really about like, I can go and get a variety. I can be like, what are all the sativas you have? I want to try a gram of this, a gram of this, a gram of this, and find something new. But outside of that, it's like once I know what I like Jack Herrera is just like a consistent favorite of mine for a solid 17 years of my life. Like I'm Jack Herrera. It is delicious. But if I could find it and grow it, my need, even my desire to go in dispensaries would be a lot less often. I just would not, to be able to do it on your own, to be self-sufficient in that way. I think it's good for people because it is still a medicine. Like even people who are using marijuana recreationally, it's still a kind of medicine. Is it giving you relief? Right? Is it helping you calm down when you're angry? Is it helping motivate you to go eat something? Is it helping you feel brave enough to step outside and walk to the mailbox today? Like even people who are not, terminally ill and using it, or dealing
Right.
with seizures or chronic illness that they need it, medicinally for. It does so many things for people. It really does, that it's like, why not grow it if you could? Why not have that kind of like connection to what you're putting in your body? It's a bonus,
Right.
I
Right.
think.
No, it's so funny sometimes that we're still having these conversations, right? Like weed is, marijuana, ganja, whatever you want to refer to it by, um, is medicinal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
do a whole other show like psychedelics. They're medicinal. You know what I'm saying?
Can I tell you?
There's
Yes.
medicinal aspects. But when we have these conversations, it's so interesting. People are just like, they're still stuck on this is a drug kind of thing. I'm just like, yo, dude, I see how many cigarettes you smoke. I see how much coffee you drink. You know what I'm saying?
I
I
see how
know how
many
much alcohol,
drive-throughs you go through. Yeah.
right? All these things
Your
are,
cheeseburgers are made up of chemicals. Like your cheeseburgers are
right,
made up of chemicals.
right,
It's not
right,
real. And a normal
right,
person who is not addicted to that would not keep going and eating it because they know it was awful. It's
right.
like, stop
And
doing it.
right, and this is part of also like what you said in terms of, that's why I think it's important when we talk about legal weed to
Yep.
also remember that there's a certain portion that probably needs to remain illegal, for lack of a better term.
Agreed.
Meaning, there needs to be the personal, small batch, small farmers. I
Hmm.
think where we are now with the quarantine and everything, people investing and learning how to grow stuff again and everything, I think that needs to be
Right.
part of it, so that kind of medicine. Because the other thing is that when when uh when it is fully put in the hands of the government, then you're not going to know what you're getting. You know what I'm saying?
Never.
You're not going to, it. And when they can regulate your medicine, then it's going to be a
Right.
real problem. I have friends who are in Canada. It's legalized out there and everything. You go get it from the government, but they said that the weed that you get from the government is like on some like heroin level. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
just zones you out. So it's just like, but that's literally like the source now of
Right.
weed. So they
Right.
basically handed it over to someone else. So in terms of like from a hood health concept, like the production, to stay on top of your production of your own medicines, it is important even while they're
And a
legalizing.
blessing.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
even
Yeah.
while they're legalizing it, and also like you said, you got to hold them accountable for in terms of when they're legalizing, to make sure that they do everything they're supposed to do. So like I said, like we need to
Right.
make sure that the people who are in jail with these charges, that they get those stuff expunged. We need to make sure that when they get out of jail, that they're some of the first ones in line in terms of to
Right.
have resources to be able to turn this into a legal business for them. And then we
Yeah.
also need to also keep on top of understanding the language that they use in these legalization, like we were talking earlier
We
about
talked, yep, the
marginalization.
affirmative
So
action thing. Right, right, right.
right. So you were talking about how like in New York, there's a certain percentage of the tax that's going to go to marginalized people, um,
Right.
that deals with this. But the problem is like the language, it becomes tricky at times. So like with the civil rights era, which started basically because black people were getting shitted on. Let's keep it
Right.
100. Like black people get
Yeah.
shitted on. The civil rights movement started. Everybody else benefits off of that movement, right? So black
Right.
people start the civil rights movement. Other people of color benefit from it. Immigrants benefit from it. People who are handicapped, differently abled, they benefit from
Oh,
it.
right.
Women benefit from it.
Right.
So when we get to affirmative action, what people don't realize is that women come under affirmative action, right? But
White
then
women,
also, if you're not doing
not just like women, but
white
white
women
women.
come under,
Right.
right? They come
Yes.
under that. So guess who ends up to have a huge benefit? of all these programs,
Right.
white women, and
because
these
then they
white
can
women,
say
you
they've
know,
reached a percentage, like, oh, this many people of the marginalized community were, and it's like, okay, well, if 2 of them were black men and 8 of them were white women, how do, right? Because it's like those white women get those benefits. They are the benefactors of this affirmative action, but then they take that back to their white communities and their white families and their white businesses and their white, so it just helps lend to more white supremacy. And maybe not intentionally. I'm not trying to say, like, if you are a white woman who has somehow benefited from, you know, affirmative action, you're going back to your KKK meeting and be like, haha, that's not the point I'm trying to make. But it's like, even the microaggressions, or like not understanding the system of white supremacy and not actively fighting against it when you are given a hand up because of affirmative action in the civil rights movement, helps lend power to the white supremacist structure. I hope that was clear enough for all white ladies, because I'm not trying to offend all of you. Some of you, yes, but not all of you. So
listen, if you offended, you offended. You know, that's me right now. Usually,
I'll survive.
You know, but no, my thing is, like, you're right. What happens is like there's percentages we don't get to see. So like, okay, so white women are treated as a marginalized group. I understand that, but then when the majority of that marginalized group votes for policies that are against their own group,
Trump,
against other people, right?
Yeah.
Then I got a problem, you know, with y'all being benefactors of something that's supposed to push forward marginalized people. And this is what we have to watch for, this language. So, you know, other places like that town in Illinois. God, what is the town? What is the
was
town?
it Everton or Everest, Illinois, or something? It was like Everton or Everett. I bet I can.
Evanston.
Evanston
is
okay.
the first.
Oh, right.
Is the first city in the United States to fund reparations for Black residents. So how they're done is working, which is power, which is so fire, is that they're taking a percentage of the tax that they've added on top of the weed. Right. And that is going to go to its Black residents in terms of housing.
It was like up to $25,000 per resident per year to go towards housing, right? Oh, that's beautiful.
Right.
So dope.
Right. Like it's such a simple thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's such a simple thing. Like, this is money that people are paying. They're going to pay. People don't complain about tax on weed. You know what I'm saying? They don't complain about tax on weed. They play about tax. Oh, their taxes, my taxes are going to. Yeah, they don't complain about tax on weed. But it's important though, because a lot of these other places, for instance, here, are doing real shady shit. Okay, so for instance, there's a tax on weed here for I don't know if it's specifically Portland or Oregon, but the tax goes back. It's supposed to be, it goes back to the city, right? But it's supposed to be used for like education and everything. But you know who also is a benefactor of that? The fucking cops.
Yeah. When you said it goes back to the city, I was like,
yeah,
definitely
so
the cops.
The same cops who are locking up people due to drug charges,
right,
and who historically have locked up people during drug charges, are becoming beneficiaries of
the tax.
And I'm like, no, don't make them, like, cut them out. They don't get that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but see, this is why you have to really, really be on top of stuff like this, because it's funny. I always told people, they said that the electric car was killed by the oil industry, because what the oil industry was doing, like, when people kept coming up with patents for electric cars, they would buy up the patents. So you could never produce
that's
it.
shady shit.
And it's so predictable though. But
and they just allow it. That's awful.
Yeah, because who's going to stop them? They got the money.
There should be some sort of conflict of interest that in business like that, because that's like a really there should. Okay, I'm sorry. Finish your thought, because now I'm going to do that thing where I'm over here. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. I mean, we just had a president who fucking hired his whole family. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a clear conflict of interest. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a conflict of interest. But the other bad thing in the long term, which is scary, is that these companies, when it comes time to switch, they have the money. So when it comes time to
Right.
switch into solar, they're the ones who will benefit
Who
because
can
they
just
have the
do it.
money.
Yep.
Right. And that's the same thing that happens with weed. So a lot of these companies, these big companies, they can,
Yeah.
the same ones who have bad practices, they end up,
Yeah.
you know, into the wheat market and everything, you know. And
Right.
it's like, you know, like it blew my mind. Like, who would have ever thought that fucking Budweiser and Miller and all them would be selling fucking seltzers?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, yo, I saw that the other day. I was like, wait, they're selling seltzer water? What? But what? Fuck? What?
Crazy,
Budweiser?
dude.
But once again, they're the ones with the money that's able to transition.
They
Um,
can. Exactly.
right. So that's why we have to also watch this legalized things because it just because it's something that we think is beneficial to us as a whole, in terms of the product,
Right.
it still doesn't mean that we're locked in. We could literally be locked out of the whole,
Right.
you know, business aspect of it. You know?
Right. Anytime. I mean, we kind of are being locked out of it now.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
no,
again,
definitely.
that's why we're really curious to see what happens in New York with this. Because there is,
Yeah,
I mean, that was literally, you know, I don't even remember which one it was now because I have like all 900 of the books that you and Supreme did together. But it talks, I mean, it is business. I mean, if you can, you know, sell weed, if you can sell whatever, if you can, you know, it's just, the point is like, it is business, right? It's like
right,
people will degrade it and call it drug dealing and whatever they want to, but the bottom line is it's business. Like, it is smart and it is methodical, calculated thinking, and it is action
right,
oriented to collect the resources, to figure out the economics, to get out there, and do you know what I mean? And maybe it's not the best
right,
way to do it, but it's still business.
right,
Like, it's business,
right,
you know? My
right.
son just broke into the room.
Which one? Who's that?
This was Onyx. Say hi.
What up, Onyx?
Hi. Yeah.
Onyx.
He got
Gotta
mud
get
on
it,
his foot,
guys. Of
and
course
he
he
wanted to
does.
make sure I saw. So
Of
yeah,
course he
I'm
got
I'm
mud
gonna
on his foot.
handle this for 2 seconds, dude, and I'll be
No, it's
right
okay.
back.
I'll just keep ranting on, you know, in terms of about, you know, as we make this move in terms of figuring out, you know, our position as Black, Indigenous, and people of color in terms of legalized weed. We definitely needs to have something on the table. And there's people doing this work. Let me not, you know, disparage that there aren't Black, Indigenous, people of color out there doing the work, making sure that these laws are passed, that we're being seen and everything. Um, but it's also important to understand that, you know, this might not just be like the golden goose kind of thing. You know, it might not be the golden goose kind of thing. So it's important to look in terms of how people are also utilizing our own innovation and creativity to
Right.
market. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Also during times like this, like you said, the medicinal aspect of
Right.
marijuana, it's important for us to get locked into that too. When you have particular
Right.
strains that like the God, what is that strain? The Charlotte Webb's one, the one that was
Oh,
made
I'm
for
not
the
familiar.
girl who she was
Oh,
had
specific to an
incredible like
illness she had.
seizures.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And basically it's basically one that they stripped it of like the THC or whatever. Um and it was healing. Like, it's important for us to get in on developing strains like that so that we can be in
Right.
the medicinal market. It's also important for us to set up our own even dispensaries so that we can also
Yes.
market to our people. You know, because it's the other
Right.
thing.
Right.
You know, if you got, you know, Black and brown people be smoking weed, right? Um,
Right.
and if it's available, you know, the availability is important to us. So um, if there's dispensaries around that's close to us and we go to them, it's because, you know, they're easy access. But if all those are owned by white people, then we're locking ourselves out of the money making aspect of the market where we just once again just become consumers. So it's important also to really, really figure out, like, we need some of these dispensaries to be Black owned, to be Black and brown owned, because where we know that we're a high percentage of the consumers. This is the issue that we have right now in terms of the Black community, even in terms of it's related. I don't want to kind of like I'm offering the disclaimer because it can be kind of construed as though this is like anti-Asian hate.
Okay.
But it's the same way in the Black community in terms of that, we need to figure out in terms of having more ownership when it comes to nail salons and hair salons and hair production.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's just ridiculous at this point, that we're still at this point where there's a resource that is specifically targeted for the Black community that isn't owned by the Black community.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, no disrespect to the Asian community at all. But it's like, I would also have an issue with either Black people or white people taking over an entire market that was specific to Asian people. It's like, you should allow Asian people to be doing that and making money for things that are specific to them. So yeah. I mean, I understand that 100%. Right? I genuinely feel that's just how it should be. Yeah, for all of us.
Right.
For all of us. Yeah.
It's really not. I don't feel like it should be even a discussion or argument. Like, my same argument that I always said, I don't feel like there should be male gynecologists. Oh well.
Why are you there? Yeah, no, it's true. What do you know? I was literally just talking about that earlier. It is bizarre to me too. I had one male gynecologist when I was younger, like when I was first a young woman to be coming in. I just remember being like, the fuck do you even know what's good? Like, I understand from a textbook, but it's like you're trying to explain things that are going on and shit that I could say to any other woman, medically trained or not, right? And they'd get it. They'd be like, oh yes, when the vagina does that, I know it, right? I'm like, I don't even know what language to use with you because I haven't memorized the textbook, bro. So I don't know how we're gonna work together here. I had one male deliver one of my children, my last child. I ended up having a male doctor because I ended up driving to the hospital, and then we ended up screaming at each other when I was in labor. I hit him. He's just like, get away from me, let me give birth. It's just like, I can't. It really is that, though. It's like, if there is something specific to a certain population, allow that population to control it. I mean, I agree that it's as simple as that. And that doesn't mean you can't be involved. It just means you should not be cornering the market on something that does not have anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And this is where I feel like, even as things are happening with legalization of weed, that we need to, keep our eyes on, that aspect of it, because basically what will happen is that, like I said, you'll have what's the word I'm looking for? You'll have an industry that has a high population of us there.
Oh, right.
We won't have any ownership of it. So everybody's like, oh, I'm happy that I can go down and buy, weed whenever I want to. But it's like, yeah, but none of that weed money is coming back into your neighborhood.
It's not going to your community. Right.
And when we're at the level that we're talking about legalization of things on these kind of levels, then we're talking about that there's a lot of money, involved in it, and that's what they want to. Oh wow, this is a good question. I was actually looking on our live real quick.
Do we have a question? We're so bad at this, you guys. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What's up?
It says, do you think Oregon will ever offer protection for employees who use THC or edibles for any purposes, especially medicinal use? No. I mean, I just got here, but no. I will say no. I will say no. And this is why I say
legal. No. If it becomes federally legal, things will change, but absolutely not. Like, Oregon is progressive. Oregon could be considered progressive. Oregon is not like liberal or, reasonable in a lot of situations. I do not see that happening. No.
And then also businesses can get really, really shisty in terms of the language
Yes.
of the thing. So for instance, and I always tell this story, for instance, when I worked as a bus driver, you cannot, you can't use drugs, right?
Have right
Let me
anything.
put it
Yeah,
this way.
yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
can't you can't use weed that way. You could take aspirin or whatever. You could
Right.
drink 20 cups of caffeine. You could smoke 50 cigarettes,
Coffee.
you know,
Right, right, right,
you
right.
know.
You just
But the
absolutely
but the
nothing
other
else.
thing, but the crazy thing about it is that you could be an alcoholic, right? Because
Fair.
you you could be spot tested, right?
Dang, dude.
Anytime.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. You can be spot tested anytime, but alcohol doesn't stay in your system,
Right.
right? So you could
Right.
be an alcoholic. And also the other thing is that people knows this, that anyone who knows, been around the drug testing industry knows this.
Right.
Um, the drug testing industry is set up specifically to demonize weed.
Yes.
All right. So the way the tests are set up, weed doesn't kind of leave your body THC for like 30 days, right?
Right.
So you could smoke a blunt on the first, on a weekend, right?
Yeah.
Be tested
Chilling.
in the middle of the week on the 28th, and it'll still be in your system, right?
Yes.
And they'll have things against you. But cocaine, for instance, pretty much flushes out your body within 3 days.
Right.
So you could snort up on Friday night and Monday have a spot test and it not show up.
Nothing.
So you could literally have a
Right.
person who is a crack addict or a cocaine addict, but a
Right.
person who's doing it every weekend. You could have someone who smokes weed like once in a month, and it shows up.
Yeah.
We had a person at one of my jobs who literally, it was known that he was an alcoholic. He was a bus driver. He was known he was an alcoholic. This. Let me tell you how crazy this shit is. When I found out stories about this dude, they knew like he had driven like kids up like for their graduations, and he like for like like the parks they go to sometimes for high school graduations, for like the cookout for the thing, and he would go to the side and was drinking mad beer, and someone else had to go and drive his bus back.
And he still had a
He wasn't
job. They
fired.
didn't fire him after that shit.
Listen.
Yo.
The only reason that they ended up firing him is because on one time on the radio, he like flipped off on somebody and he thought it was somebody else, but it turned out to be the boss.
Okay.
And
So now that it's affected the boss.
Basically, so they called him in, and then he had the test, whatever. But like it was already known.
Ah,
so to get
dude.
back to that question is, I don't think, and it's crazy because like technically, like the same way that it's not illegal for me to drink alcohol as a bus driver, I really should be the same way with weed. Like if I'm not doing it on the job, right? If I'm not doing it where it affects my abilities, then like if I get into an accident, or whatever, and you test me and I got it, then I need all the penalties, right? The same way as if I was drinking, But to test whether I drink at all, or test whether I smoke weed is ridiculous. This is how jobs will trap people, even if it becomes legal, because they'll say within the requirements of their job, this isn't allowed. And it'll be used for jobs across the board. Like it won't be used for your doctor. Your doctor, he can smoke as much weed and crack as he wants to. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They're not being tested.
Right. But your school teacher or people in a lot more stressful situations,
who need a joint at the end of the day, frankly. Yeah. Hi.
Right. And I'd rather have that than have that to be an alcoholic, personally.
Yeah, for real.
But this is how they're like pushed out. So like I said, even that's why legalization is in quotes, because I forgot what someone said to me. They basically said that things aren't illegal. I forgot how they phrased it, but they basically said that things aren't illegal as long as you're able to pay your way out of them.
Oh yeah. Okay. Fair. Yeah.
So technically, it's not illegal. It's only illegal for poor people. You know what I'm saying?
I was just watching a clip of then you're fine. Then what is it? You paid your way out. For poor people only.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just watching a clip of Lil Wayne when he was in court back in 2012, and it was hilarious to me. Like, he was straight up on the stand talking shit, just straight up talking shit right in front of the judge to the attorney's face. And it's like, he's got money. He's like, you're going to give him some time. He's going to pay the fine, go on about his fucking business. And do you know what I mean? So he straight up was just like, I don't have to. Why am I even here right now? It's dumb, you know? And you don't get that kind of freedom unless you can afford it, bottom line. And arresting people for little charges, making petty things illegal, and slapping them with fines and keeping them in the system is a way to keep them in the system. Because if you can't pay the fines for whatever it is, whether it was like, you know, you had a joint or what the fuck ever, if you can't pay the fines, you're just in more trouble. Now you got more fines. And then when you can't pay those, just in more trouble. Now you got more fines. You're going to have to do jail time. There's going to be fines. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's set up to make it impossible.
They said it's expensive to be poor, and it really is. Poverty is expensive. You know, poverty is very, very, very expensive. And that's why I said, like, once again, it's important with, while yes, it is, you know, coming across legal, you know, we have to really, really see what that really means for Black and brown people across the board. You know,
because they're the ones disproportionately in jail due to minor weed charges, and minor ones.
And will also be the ones that don't have the rewards that come with
the legalization.
With the legalization of it.
Of the recreational use. Yeah, exactly.
And that's key for me. Like, you know, everybody, if it's, what's that saying? If it's not accessible to the poor, then it's not accessible. You know, that's really not free, really not accessible. You know, like, so that's everything, whether we talk about healthcare, legalization of weed, you know, all these things. If it's not accessible to everybody, then you it's just stuck in somebody's.
Accessible is the wrong word. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that's definitely where we are. I think we recovered
everything.
I think
we did too.
You know.
And I feel like we're probably pretty close to at least an hour-long recording for people who are not able to join us live. I'm really sorry, you guys. I'm still getting used to this. I'm still trying to I want to be able to get a better microphone too. Because I'm always just like, the sound. You always sound so much clearer and better to me. So, you know, I'm blah, blah, blah to basically say, like, again, we are a work in progress. And thank you guys for sticking with us, because I know this is silly. But I will remember to hit record from now on. That will not happen again.
That won't ever, you know, not happen.
I didn't even smoke before this episode, which probably feels weird, right? Like, part of me was just like, I really just need to sit and smoke a joint straight to my face and get in the zone so we can have this conversation. But then I also was like, no, because I don't want to just be chilling, like, hey, because that will happen to me if I smoke too much, or I will get anxiety and like be up wanting to clean things because I had some sativa. I didn't even smoke. I don't even have that to fall back on and be like, sorry, I forgot to hit record. It's embarrassing. I'm gonna go smoke now, though.
All right. Handle that shit. Handle that. Thank you all once again for rocking with us. You're rocking with the best. You know, we'll be back in 2 weeks.
We will.
On wait, what's today? Today's the 7th, so we'll be back on the 21st.
April 21st, we will be here. Episode 4.
Wow.
Do we want to throw out options again for people to vote, or do we just want to pick something this time, or how do you want to handle this? Do we do like the second most popular? What did we talk about last time?
I don't even know.
You know what? Yeah, let's discuss it. We can just put a poll. If you go to our IG, talk with _ALife_Lisa Ebony, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yep.
I'm going to drop our IG link in the comments because I don't even know what it is off the top of my head. Yeah, we'll put it in the comments, and then we can put a poll on there when we decide what we're going to do. That'll be easier.
That works, definitely.
All right, y'all. Have a good Wednesday. We'll catch you on our social media, and we will see y'all the 21st.
See ya.